Welcome to the Love Pod, where inspiration, vision, and real connection come alive. Wherever you are, you belong here.
Hello, and welcome back to the Love Pod, everyone. I'm your host, Julia, and today we're diving into a conversation that feels so aligned with what we're all about at Light Heart Vision, especially when it comes to our children and their education. Today, we are joined by special guest Houlie Duque, and Houlie is the founder and CEO of HomeschoolToGo, a personalized and fully bilingual education program that blends project-based learning with parent coaching to help unlock each child's unique potential. With over a decade of experience in teaching and curriculum design, Houlie is on a mission to reimagine education. And what I love most about her work is that it brings parents back into the heart of the learning journey. So, Houlie, welcome to the Love Pod. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I love what you're doing and what you're sharing with your community.
Thank you. Likewise, and I'm really excited to explore more of what you're doing today. So, to start us off, I just would love to know, like, what first attracted you to the world of education?
I think it was a very natural process for me. Like when I was in school, I did go to private school. I realized I was really good at teaching others what I was learning. So I would do like tutoring jobs for younger students. And then when I was in high school, when I was having like my like exam season would come on, I would do like these little study packets, and my classmates would ask me if they could study with me. And so I started selling the study packets as a business. And so it was always something that came very naturally for me. But I got into the homeschooling because when I taught for about 10 years, I realized that no matter how hard I worked, I couldn't do the ultimate everything for my students, and that for them to be able to reach their full potential, it was either if their parents got involved to the same extent that I was as their teacher, or if I had the time to work at least one on one or one or two, or like slow, like smaller groups, so that it could be more personalized. And I realized that was impossible in a classroom setting. So I think when I was in my teacher career, that's when I realized that when the day came that I would have children, I would homeschool them.
So beautiful. I love that. And I love that you are such a businesswoman, putting two and two together to be so resourceful, but also helping serve, your peers and wanting them to do better as well. It sounds like it was a really natural unfolding. And I totally agree with you. Like we could not do it all. I come from an education background as well. And it's really, it's how much we're putting in and giving, but also how much they're willing to receive and give to themselves. And then especially for the younger ones, it's how much the parents are willing to play a role as well. And that's super, super important. And I love all that you're doing. Do you feel like that is the missing piece in the traditional education systems, that there's that lack of parent connection and presence?
I think that it goes a little bit beyond that. I think every child learns differently, and they all have their special, unique gifts that need to be developed at different paces, in different times, in different fields. So it's really hard when you have one solid structure, one size fits all, to as your fundamental tool to help everyone at the same time. And I do think that rather than keeping everyone to the same standard and then making students work more on what they're less strong at is not the most conducive path. I think it's better when you identify what are the talents of a child, and then you work on developing those rather than making them invest more time in what they're not good at.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And it's really interesting because I feel like a lot of more parents are naturally gravitating towards the interest of homeschooling or the idea of homeschooling nowadays. But perhaps it just seems or feels so overwhelming because they wouldn't even know where to start. And maybe they don't come from an education background. And so just speaking of these unique individual learning needs, like if a parent is wanting to start there, how could they begin to recognize, their child's unique genius?
I think that it comes from the consistency of working with them and being able to determine what they, so there's like the left brain and the right brain. Like, are they better with letters and art and expression, or are they better with logical thinking and mathematics? Do they like working in the morning, or do they like working in the afternoon? Do they need more physical exercise during their day, or are they the kind that like to sit down more? It's all these little things. There's two tools that we use additionally to those observations, and is identifying their personality type. Of course, it's is general, but I think it applies very well in the way that we use it. And I took this from Waldorf education. So they have the four different types, which, to not get into the terminology, I'm just going to say the color. So it's yellow, red, blue, and green. And most children have a dominant one and a secondary one. And so you can use one or the other to be able to approach them and set an environment that they're going to thrive in. And then there's another thing that we do once the child turns 7 or 8, when they're at the maturity level where they can answer these questions intuitively and honestly. We're able to assess which are their predominant multiple intelligences. And so if a child is more prominent and talented in verbal linguistic intelligence, we'll build their curriculum to develop those skills, because by the time they get done with their K-12 education, they'll have a very clear path of where they can grow and they can be outstanding, and how they can translate into value for the world, which is ultimately, I think, what education should be about, like how to turn your unique gifts into something of value for others.
Yeah, absolutely. It really sounds like, just meeting the child where they're at, and just listening and being present, because they will show you how they enjoy learning or what works for them. And it's really cool that you've learned all these different techniques of how to assess that and understand on a different level, because, I feel like in some school systems, especially the traditional education system, a lot of these children struggle because they're not being honored in their learning style. And so it's challenging for them, right? But when we can meet them where they're at and really understand like how they learn and what lights them up, and the technique and strategy behind that, like it makes learning fun again. It puts the fun back in learning. And please go ahead.
Yeah, and I think also, sorry, so sorry. I
That's
think there's
okay.
also like aspects of that structure that stifle the actual love for learning. Like, for example, in the United States, there's like a premium value on the property if they're located in a place where the schools are performing high. So what that means is that there's this obsession over test scores.
Mm.
And I think test scores is not an accurate way to measure the learning of the child. I think it has more to do with consistent development and overcoming of previous performance, rather than this standardized test that measures everybody on it. And I think that also adds pressure not only to the child, but to the parent. And we become this society that's um, obsessed with achievement and obsessed with like scores and obsessed with like these this false measures for what real success is supposed to be. And so I think that also plays into what you were saying, how a parent might feel overwhelmed. Like, I wasn't trained to be a teacher, so how can I be the teacher of my child? Well, you taught them how to walk, you taught them how to talk, you taught them so many things throughout their lives. And also, as a parent, you don't have to be the all-knowing mentor. You just have to be willing to learn alongside them. And so
Beautiful.
and so when a parent feels like, oh, what if my child is behind? Like, what are the things that they need to know by this grade? And this grade is like, those things are important to an extent, but there are other factors that are much more important than that, that should be the focus. But it's almost like we've been brainwashed to follow this system. Even if you're homeschooling, you're still kind of programmed into that
Mm.
belief system.
Totally. And if you just let go of the need to compare to, you will realize that they're always where they're meant to be, just as we are. Like there's no better off or worse off. Like every child goes at their own pace, just as we do as adults. And what I love about homeschooling is like we are encouraging the children to stay connected to their themselves, their authentic selves, and their unique gifts and talents. We're not putting them in the system, to conform and become somebody they're not. So for me, I think that's the most important thing for the desire to homeschool my daughter, is like I want her to always be who she is, and who she is always good enough. She doesn't have to try to be someone else to, to be accepted or to be loved. And so I think that's really important.
Yes, I agree. I don't want to criticize the system too much, but I also think when you group big numbers of children of the same age together, for them, psychologically, they're searching for belonging. That's what we all need for survival. So they search for belonging at the cost of their authenticity because I have to be this way to fit in. And I
Hmm.
think that's probably the highest cost that they pay by being enrolled into the traditional education system is that they learn in order to survive, they have to reject their authenticity. And I believe that's one of the most important things in today's time
Hmm.
that we should be fully connected and focused on developing.
Likewise. And if we could just talk about the social aspect, because I feel like everyone who I meet who, when I tell them I'm homeschooling my children, they're always so afraid of like, well, what about how is she going to be social? And my daughter she's only 2, but she's the most social butterfly I know. And she's not only that, she's not just talking to kids her age, she's talking to everyone, older, younger. She's so open. So if a parent were to come to you and have that same fear, what would you say to them?
Yeah, I get this question all the time, by the way. It's like the most common question that people have. But I think it's also part of that false programming that in order
Hmm.
to learn how to be social, children need to be grouped together with the same age. Like never in the world are we in a room with so how is that the way that you learn? And then also, other than the searching for that need for belonging, that makes you reject your authenticity in a lot of occasions, makes it so that it's almost like it's like a rule that they learn very early on. It's like in order to fit into this group, I have to reject who I am. And what that ends up creating is social anxiety, which is why I believe there's so many of us today who are socially anxious. And then the
Hmm.
other thing is that when it comes to social skills, I think it's more important to um, be okay. How do I explain this? Instead of searching, like when you go out into the world and you don't have like the same group of people, you're exposed to the same group of people all the time. You don't have to make any efforts to create
Hmm.
social connection, so they're conditional,
Hmm.
they're not actually meaningful. Whereas like I find homeschool children, not only when you look at the research do they have usually present higher scores in social measures like leadership, like peer interaction, like tolerance, like respectful communication. But I think it's because children who are homeschooled, they grow up feeling like you can be yourself. So
Mm.
then they look at the world around them, they're like, everyone can be themselves. There's nothing wrong with that. Whereas like when you go into a group of students the same age, you get this collective thinking.
Hmm.
And there's nobody there to correct it. Well, supposedly there is, but you are a teacher, so you would understand you're one teacher to 30 students. So you're not aware of every interaction that's happening in between them. The other thing is that children learn social behavior from observing people around them interact. So if you're a child who is 5 or 6 years old and you're learning your social interaction behavior from other 5 and 6 year olds, like those students or those children are not trained to be guides in social skills.
Hmm.
They're just thrown in there. The ones who are trained are the teachers, the adults, the parents. So those are the role models that students and children can learn social behavior from. So homeschool kids also are more surrounded by adults, and by observing the social behavior and the interactions between them, they're able to replicate that or to repeat that in their day-to-day lives. So I think that's why the studies show that homeschool students have better social skills than institutionalized children. However, it's such a misconception. Like it's so believed that if you're a homeschool child, you're antisocial, you're weird, but it's not the case at all, especially now when there's so many homeschoolers now that are
Hmm.
surgeon.
Yeah, and also even like local pods and so many opportunities to connect and get out for events. Yeah, yeah, I think you put that really well though. I would love if you could share more about Homeschool to Go.
Oh, yes, definitely. So I think the reason I built it the way I built it, and it obviously I didn't do that overnight. I started creating a program that I believe would give parents the best tools to be able to homeschool their children in a way that didn't feel stressful. So I built it with the methodologies that I learned working for private schools. Like I worked for a lot of prestigious institutions. So we were given the, let's say, most modern, most effective, most prestigious tools. And when I talk about that, I'm talking about project-based education. So rather than what they do in a lot of schools where they take the concepts and they take them away from the context into a classroom where you sit down with worksheets or whatever, you create projects. So when you work on a project, you're not just working on math, not just working on science, you're working on a multiple array of skill sets at the same time. And I think that's what life is like. Like when you work on this podcast, you have to do the tech part of it, you have to do the talking, the scripting, the research, all these things that come from different fields. When you put skills into practice in real life, it things are not divided by subjects, they're all together. So in the most, let's say, advanced or funded methodology, educational methodologies, they're already integrating that. They have been integrating that for a long time. But I realized that there was once I rolled out my program, I realized there's more to it. It's allowing this methodology and allowing this experience of education to be something that's sustainable and achievable for a parent in today's day and age that has a million things pulling at their attention. So that's another aspect. There's one more I'll talk about in a moment. And so what I did is I arranged it so that a parent could say, okay, I have 5 hours in the week. How do I make sure that if I work 5 hours a week on homeschooling with my child consistently, they can complete 11th grade by the end of the year? And so we have different ways to be able to design a curriculum that fits that family rhythm. And then the third aspect is that we also adjusted to the needs of the students. So rather than these are the things that you have to do, here's your worksheets, is like these are the intelligences that are more predominant in your child. These are the dominant learning styles that we can use as an entry point so that they're actually motivated to do it because it's not super frustrating right off the bat. And these are the schedules that work for them, the strategies that work for them. And then on top of that, that craving for community. So we do have, on top of the personalized curriculums and being able to adjust it to the time of each family, we have group meetings every month. We have one in English and one in Spanish. And then all the students come together and they present to each other their projects. They do games, like in the lower grades, we do games. In the upper grades, we present the projects to each other. They interact. They can create even like pen pals from around the world. And it's really cool because we have this really cool group of families. It's like parents that care about the education of their children, you know? So the children are precious, they're authentic, they're very advanced in most of the things that they're working on, like at least the ones that they like, they're very advanced in. So we have like 5 graders doing a project on music, and all the other students are watching them do that. And then we have an 11th grader doing like a financial literacy or a business model, and all the other students are commenting on it, giving feedback. It becomes a very nourishing experience for them because they have other people or other students their age that can also be an inspiration. I don't know if you're familiar with the Montessori education system, but they have this aspect. I really like that, where they group, instead of dividing children by grades, they divide them, for example, kindergarten to grade 2. So it's like a developmental, it's like similar developmental ages, because from 2nd grade to 3rd grade, there's a big jump in their development. So we group K to 2, we group 3 to 5, and so on. And so the older students become role models and inspiration for the little students. And then the little students become inspiration for the older students to practice their leadership. And so it's a very nice dynamic where it feels more like a community. where the more experienced help the youngest, and so forth. So yeah, so I think those aspects of being able to make it manageable, being able to make it personalized to what is going to develop your child's unique genius, and having that community is what I really had dreamed was available for me. So that's why I created it. But then also, as I was developing it and I was talking to thousands of parents who were in the same position, I listened to what were their needs, and I started adapting it so that it would fulfill those.
So beautiful. I really love what you're creating, and especially the community aspect of it. I think it's so cool how they can connect with one another. And I especially love how the older students can help build their leadership skills with the younger ones. And I feel like this is the way learning was always meant to be, you know? It's really beautiful what you're learning. And I know that you'll keep adjusting as you go. But I would love to, so do you cover like all subjects?
Yeah, we cover all the subjects, and then we also take into account, for example, if you're from New York State, they are going to have a lot of requirements compared to a place like Texas, for example. So we also take that into account because we have that information during the intake questionnaire. So we'll make sure that whatever we're giving you also fulfills the legal requirements of the authority that governs the state or the province.
Really cool. Yeah, it really sounds like it truly is personalized learning. I love that. Maybe you can share a little bit more about like how do families create that, you know, that balance that does not feel stressful? If you can give a little bit more of like practical tips of what you share in your curriculums that just helps parents make it feel like a nice rhythm of homeschooling, especially if they're in a transitioning phase. Like what's one simple practice they can start with?
Yes, I'll give you a simple practice, but I also, in that we were talking before the call, I have this gift for your audience. So in that masterclass, free masterclass, by the way, there's a little section where I go deep into how to create your family rhythm so it's conducive. So I think the first thing that parents need to realize when they're going to homeschool is that they need to lay off their shoulders that the schooling at home is going to look exactly like the school that they do in the classrooms. When you get the chance to work one-on-one in a personalized education form with a child, you can save so much time because as a teacher, there's so much time that I wouldn't say waste, but that you lose
Hmm.
because you have 30 students that you need to manage at the same time. There's a lot of
For
time that is
sure.
spent organizing and keeping everyone paying attention, and teaching it this way so that this person will understand. And so knowing that when you have one-on-one experience with your child, you're taking back like 5 hours a day from what you normally would have to spend if you were in a classroom setting. So I'd say 2 hours a day, it's probably more than enough for even a child that's in 11th grade.
Wow, I love that. And I think a lot of people might be thinking like that actually makes a lot of sense. Are there any other common myths that about homeschooling that you would love to debunk that you can think of off the top of your
Um,
head?
the biggest one is the antisocial,
Hmm.
that
We
is
covered.
overwhelming. Yeah. And a lot of people ask me, oh, like if they're homeschooling, can they get a certificate and can they go to university? And the answer is yes. I mean, I think that the world is changing a lot with AI. I don't know university education for how much longer it will stay relevant in the way that it is right now. I mean, I went to university, obviously. I had a great experience there. I have nothing against it, but I think there's a lot of things that are changing. But to those people who are wondering if your child would miss out on that opportunity, the answer is no, they wouldn't miss out. We do provide official certifications that are approved and certified by the ministries of education across all of America and Canada and Latin America. So it's a perfectly achievable path to go to
Mhm.
university when you're homeschool.
If they choose to, yeah, that's awesome. Um, what are some shifts that you've noticed in, you know, children that move into this kind of learning environment?
The number one shift is the confidence.
Mm.
It's incredible because when a lot of children, when they're in school, they feel this pressure and they attach the experience of learning to that pressure. It's like, I have to do this and I have to do this, and I'm going to be graded on it. So children tend to choose subjects and goals that are easier to accomplish because they want to get a better grade at it. And so when you homeschool and you don't have to see report cards at the end of every term, the experience really changes. When the education is about you as a student, you start to believe more in what you can accomplish because you see the project and then you see the result of the project. And then when children see how they took something from zero to this beautiful outcome, they start to believe in themselves, and they start to build that confidence, without the fear of having to be measured in a specific way. You know what I mean? Because of course, like, things are going to get measured in life, like when you offer value, but not in such specific ways as they do in the school system. So I think that is the confidence, the number one shift that I see in kids.
What a
Which
great answer.
I think is such an important skill too. Like, I think confident people tend to be more successful because they're more willing to take risks. They're more willing to learn new things. They're more willing to try new things. I think the more you fail, the more you succeed.
For
So
sure.
to be able to fail, you have to have confidence because you have to be
Yeah.
willing to try something different.
Absolutely. And they're more open to feedback too. They're not taking it as criticism because they know that they have the ability to do better. And so it's really beautiful to be able to learn from a place of trust and just knowing that like it's in alignment with the way that you are rather than this fear-based system, which a lot of us know a little too well. And I'd love to share a quick story. Actually, my partner won't mind this at all, but he grew up in Alberta, Canada, and around the age of his early teens, he moved to the province of Quebec. And in Quebec, the school system is so much more strict and absolutely so much more different. He really, like, he went into this class, and I think it was grade 7 or whatever grade it was, and there was 3 guys in his class who had already failed the previous year. And so he literally started to get his first gray strands of gray hairs in grade 7 because of the fear in this system, the school system that he was in, because he was afraid to fail. And it's just like when we are in these systems and these classrooms where we're learning something because of a fear to not succeed, it's not in alignment with the way that we were always meant to learn. And like when you speak about when a child can be confident and excited about learning and adventurous and curious, I feel like that's the way we are. And as children, we were like that. And we don't need to pretend to be someone who we're not just because we're going to be accepted or pass the class or whatever it is, right? So I would love to ask you, where would you like to, unless you want to add anything to that, Houlie?
No, well, I was going to say that the number one killer of dreams is the fear of failure. And
Hmm.
so it is really important to early on make sure that's not something that's blocking you or your children, because you also have to exemplify it with your actions. But I think a lot of us have fear of failure because of the school system. Like, you hand in an assignment, you get a grade on it, you keep moving. Whereas,
Hmm.
like, in real life, it's not like that. Like, even if you're handing a project and your boss doesn't like it and you get fired as a result of it, you can go ahead and find a new job in something that you're better at. Most cases, you won't get fired for delivering a project. You will just get asked to change things about it. And so that's very similar to how we do things in the upper grades. When a child hands in a project, I tell the moms, they're always going to have to change something. We're always going to ask them because things can always be better.
Hmm.
And you need them to understand that having to improve something you have done does not mean you failed. It just means you're getting better. And so you can raise your standards. So yeah, I think that fear of failure is primarily caused by the school system for a lot of us. I can't speak for everyone, but even when you have parents that are like very rigorous, I think that also comes from their own programming of having experienced that measuring system of grades for the work that
Hmm.
you do. But in
Yeah,
real
and
life, there
and
isn't a
and
clear.
also Totally. And also, like, speaking of jeopardizing our dreams, how many of us as adults actually chased after the dreams we had when we were children? I feel like, it's not so common these days to find someone who knows what they want in life and really go after it and think for themselves. It's a lot of people don't follow that entrepreneur path because it's not an easy path to go. Doesn't mean that it's not possible, but it's not the mainstream path, right? It's easy to do something that someone tells you what to do and you don't have to think as hard for yourself. But the amount of freedom you could find whenever you're truly, doing what you want in life and it feels good. I think it's all about the feeling too. Like all the actions that you're doing throughout the day or whatever you're spending most of your time in, how does it make you feel? Is it energizing you or is it draining you? So I would love to ask you, as an entrepreneur and having created this, like how do you feel and what are some of the duties that you do throughout your days?
How do I feel? I feel like I'm living my absolute dream. Like I couldn't imagine anything else that I could be doing. Like I literally wake up every day and say thank you because I feel like this
Mm,
is the greatest gift to be
beautiful.
able to pour all this effort into a project where I meet daily. I meet people they tell me I prayed you into my life. This is what I was looking for, or to see students presenting a project and feeling so proud of themselves. And I get to tell their mom, like, wow, that was mind blowing. The mom's like, I know. It's like really the most wonderful um gift I think that I have received as far as my career.
Mm,
And my day to day. So I do have, like, I would say 50% of my efforts go into serving my clients because I do like to have one-on-one contact with all of my clients because I think it's very important. Like I built this organization with my heart. So I want to be able, like, as I hire more people to help me with that, I want them to really understand how to do it in a way that every parent feels seen and feels supported. One of the things that all of our team of teachers do is we message, like we have our list of parents that we serve, and once a week we have to do a check-in to see if they need anything adjusted, to see if they have any questions. So a lot of my day goes into that type of stuff. And like that includes as well, like reviewing curriculums or getting observations from projects and like adjusting them and that type of stuff. And then I would say 30% of my efforts go into marketing.
mm,
So getting the voice out, getting more visibility so I can help more people, because that's a big part of my goal. So podcast, doing videos for social media, answering emails that are coming in from people asking questions, that type of stuff. And then the other part goes into my team. So making sure that I right now I have 17 people on my team. So when I first started managing a bigger team, I remember the first year I just felt so busy, but after like 2 years of having done that, I feel like it's just a part of the day to day. So like talking to everyone, like, making sure that everyone is encouraged, everyone is feeling good, everyone is feeling valued, I think is very
mm.
important. And then of course with that comes like the tasks that each one of them do. So I have like the education department, which is all the teachers, and I have the financial department, then I have the marketing and sales department. So
Amazing. Well, it seems like you've built a beautiful organization. And is everyone on your team bilingual?
most of them, every teacher is bilingual. My executive assistant is bilingual as well. And then the people in the finance are mostly just English speakers.
Okay. So cool.
And marketing and sorry, I was just going to say the marketing and sales team is also bilingual. So yeah, I would say about 80% of the organization.
Okay, wonderful. And when you're not working, what do you do outside of work for you or for fun? And do you have any children yourself, Huli?
Yes, I have a 5-year-old. And then my partner has a 7-year-old and a 10-year-old. So it's all boys. So
Wow.
it's busy. So we're doing lots of sports. Like in the summer, we go biking, we go to beaches, we play baseball, you name it. We love all the sports. And then in the winter, we do a lot of skiing. And I also love traveling. So we just came back from Colombia because I go there every year to visit my family. And when we were there, we were enrolled in surfing lessons, like anything sporty or adventurous, we love.
So awesome. That's amazing. And so does your son obviously do he's part of the homeschool to go?
Yes, he is. And I'm so excited because for so many years, like he's 5 years old, right? So it's been 5 years of me like, you know, raising him and I living in Canada, I was so worried that he wasn't gonna grow bilingual because everything around him is in English. So
Hmm.
all he had for Spanish was my homeschooling and whenever I talk to him in Spanish, which is not all the time because we're always surrounded by English speaking people. And I think this year was the first year where I can say confidently he's fully fluent in Spanish, which I'm so happy about. And a lot of parents, like a lot of immigrants, worry about that. And I always tell them, like, eventually it comes. Like, I see it in so many children, but I wasn't sure it was going to happen to me, because you always have your doubts when you're doing the things. But yeah, um, this year he's like fully fluent with the Spanish when we're in Colombia, just having conversations with everyone. And
Mm.
yeah, it's a wonderful experience to homeschool at the same time. I'm leading the organization because I can truly, from a very sincere perspective, understand the problems and the holdups and everything that happens and the wins and everything. So it's nice because I share my journey on
Hmm.
Instagram and Facebook, and then my client families that follow me on there, they're like seeing me do the same projects that perhaps their kids are doing at home. And so it's like it's nice. It's like I'm a part of the community as well. So it's very fulfilling experience.
I love that. And it just makes your mission all the more personal. And that's very reassuring, by the way, because I speak fluent Italian and I used to speak way more when when my daughter was newborn. But now, like you say, being around English people and my partner speaking English with her, I just feel like she's being absorbed more to that. But it's so interesting because they pick up so easily at young ages and they're like sponges. And sometimes she'll come to me and she'll say a word or a sentence in Italian that I'm like, how does she even know that? Right? Because they're always learning, and I know that over the years she'll continue to, and especially when you immerse in a culture and you go there, like they just pick it up so quickly, so that's super reassuring.
Yes, I agree. The immersion is a key point part of it, but the consistency is even more important because like we only get to go to Colombia once a year.
Hmm.
So if I wasn't doing all that consistent work throughout the year, we would get there and he would everyone speaking in Spanish, but he can express himself so much better in English. He would always just try to find a way to get somebody to translate or say
Hmm.
words. But I think consistency is a big part of language learning.
Absolutely, and helping build that confidence that you spoke about earlier.
Once running on two systems, like that's an incredible skill. Like kids that grow to be bilingual are they have amazing capabilities beyond the language. And
Yeah.
so the fact that, like last night, for example, he was like speaking in his sleep and I came over because I thought something was wrong or he was up or something, and he was like speaking in Spanish. And so it's like once they're dreaming in their second language, that it's really in there. And again, that doesn't come just from one trip a year. It comes from them being exposed to it consistently over time.
For sure, and continuing to do the work. So amazing, amazing job. But I just would love to end with this one question. So where would you like to see the future of education going?
I think it's going to continue to grow in the favor of homeschooling. Where I would like to see it go is towards developing the unique abilities of each child,
Mm.
because I think that's how we can work and complement each other as a community to advance as a whole, as a conquered evolution best. When not everyone who's good at one thing competing for the same spot, but rather collaboration.
Mm.
And I think that's achieved not through teaching everybody the same. So I hope that as more people come into homeschooling, they realize how important it is that they truly take that experience to personalize that for their children.
Yeah, absolutely. And also just debunking all the myths or the ideas of what you think it should look like and really just going with the flow. And like you said earlier, learning alongside your child because, you may not have all the answers before you start, but if you're willing and open, like your child may teach you some things that you would have never thought and you'd be surprised. I truly think that these little beings come in with so much light and so much knowledge already that it's really just listening to them. And then it's our role to kind of guide them, right? Because we have more experience in these bodies and these, and on this earth. And anyways, it's really about holding their hand and kind of going together like a dance. But it's really exciting because you also might uncover some skills that or some gifts inside yourself that you may have forgotten about.
I agree. I agree. Letting them take that role, or taking on that role of being a guide rather than a
Mhm.
teacher, and then allowing that experience to teach you as well. Like our children, I believe, are our biggest teachers.
Absolutely.
So
And I agree with what you said about earlier. We're not all meant to be the same. Each of us came in with a unique gift and purpose. And the more that we can shine and collaborate one another, it's like this world is going to be, it already is a beautiful place, but it will get even brighter the more that we are in our authenticity.
I think it's also really important that education is taking this shift or this turn, because we're bringing family back into the center of education, like you were saying earlier. Like, I think family is so important for the healthy development of people and children, and also for community. Family is important for community. So I think that being able to strengthen those bonds within family, because there is no more competition. Like, oh, my mom says this, but my friends at school say this, and there's like that competition. Like, I believe that strengthening the influence of the parents and strengthening the family bonds both ways, like not just you trying to control what your child's going to do, but rather letting your child take you on the journey of what they're going to become, and being, you know, generous and flexible with that. I think that uh, has the potential to develop more compassion in us and to make us um, more solid as a community.
Beautiful. Yeah, I think the family piece is super important. I mean, like I was telling you earlier, we were living on Vancouver Island, and when our daughter was about 7, 8 months young, we moved back to the province of Ontario, where both of our parents are and Luciana's grandparents. And she just thinks it's normal to be around my mother all the time. In Italian, grandmother is nonna. And every time we read a book about a school or a classroom and she sees a teacher, she always goes, "Oh, there's the nonna," because she thinks it's normal that little ones are around the grandmother. And I think it's beautiful because, back in the days in village settings, like our ancestors, it was intergenerational learning, right? So the grandparents were always included.
I do think that's something very important that our society has lost,
Hmm.
like the idea of the nuclear family, and the idea, like, there
Yes.
are so many parents, so many nuclear families now that are away from their roots. And
Yeah.
I do believe, like, I'm not saying I have anything against travel, because obviously, like, I'm in Canada. I was born and raised in Colombia, but I do think that closeness between generations makes life so much, like, improves
Yeah.
life. Like, when I'm in Colombia, oh, I have so much support. It's amazing.
We're not meant to do it alone. I mean, the nuclear family model is just not sustainable, and we don't need to prove ourselves to anyone. Like parenting is a huge role, and same with teaching, and we're not meant to do it alone.
Yeah.
As simple as that. Okay, this has been so beautiful. I'm just keeping an eye on the time. Is there anything else that you would love to share before we sign off here?
I just wanted to say, if you're a parent out there listening, considering homeschooling, and you feel that calling where you want to be more involved in the education of your child, but you have buts, I want you to believe that this is something that could be possible, that could open a lot of freedom for your life. And if you would just want to know what it would take, or like what would be the first steps that you have to take to be able to steer in your family in that direction, you can go to www.homeschooltogo.org. And on that first page, you'll see a button that says Homeschool to Go Masterclass. You click that and you'll be able to access for free a 30-minute video that I put together after hearing thousands of parents give me their questions when they're in that stage that you are in right now. So that video will answer so many questions, will give you actionable steps on how you can get started. And if you have more questions after that, there'll be an option there where you can meet with me and we can talk about your personalized case in detail. So I hope that I get to meet some of the listeners from today's podcast episode there later.
Thank you so much, Houlie. I'm sure you absolutely will. And I'll even have that link directly in the show notes so people can click it and access your website directly in the free masterclass. That's so beautiful. Thank you. And thanks for being here in this conversation and just sharing the beautiful work that you're doing and the organization that you're creating. It's something I'm interested in being a part of, and I'm really excited to learn more and possibly collaborate down the road. I'm definitely going to sign up for your free masterclass myself. And even for anyone listening to this, or a fellow parent, please share this with someone who may be interested, a friend or a parent, anyone who is reimagining what education can look like, because these kinds of conversations are the ones that plant seeds. And so it's like Houlie said, it's possible, and it's okay if you're a little bit afraid, but there's people here to guide you, and you don't need to do it alone. So I think that's the most important takeaway. I am going to go ahead and invite a video of our daughter to wish everyone a farewell, and I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their day. Thank you so much, Houlie.
Thank you so much for having me, Julia.
Thanks for watching. You say ciao ciao.
Bye.
I love you so much.